I'm Dr. Lisa College. Welcome to Culture by Neurodesign. I'm delighted to be joined today by Robert Annis. Robert's a neurodivergent business psychologist, so he offers a really, really distinctive perspective on organisational challenges and how organisations can thrive, even in the face of all of the change that we're all encountering every single day. Welcome, Robert. I don't want to you're most welcome. I don't want to take over your introduction, which you're obviously much better qualified than I am to do. So, so please introduce yourself and share a bit about your background and experience.
Thank you. I thought your introduction was very good, so I'll steal that for myself next time. Yes, so I work as a sort of business or organizational psychologist, and that means working with organizations, leaders, teams to find the best way to work. Our ways of working together are complex. There's lots of different things to consider as individuals and as organizations. And yes, I think the fact that I'm neurodiverse probably brings a different flavor to it. I can come up with slightly different cognitive approaches to things, perhaps, and that can be really interesting. It also means I can be very supportive of other people who may, be neurodiverse themselves, so that's not necessarily a focus, it's just an addition. And I think it allows us to look at some of the challenges organizations have. We're in a staggering time of change in every possible way you can imagine, really, political, environmental, culture, and organizations have to try and work in those environments, and that's not easy. And so people like I exist, and like you, Lisa, to try and help them navigate those challenges. And yeah, that's what I do when people employ me. That's what I'm there to do.
Great. Well, thanks for the background. Last time we talked, you were telling me about a seminar that you'd attended recently at the University of Oxford, right? And you were listening to some of the professors sharing their research about neurodivergence, and you mentioned that you're neurodivergent, and that's why I wanted to start with this area. So the professors were sharing their research about autistic people and people with other neurodivergences, and how fantastic their strengths were, what desirable strengths they had. What struck you most from that discussion? Several things it could be.
Yeah, there's a couple of things. It was a master moment for me. I was quite a late comer to recognizing my neurodivergency. It's a relatively recent thing for me. I don't doubt it. I don't have a problem with it. I just always found the world very, very difficult, and was always very frustrated that others seemed to find it easier than I did. And over the last few years, I've found out the sort of levels of neurodivergence I have. The most recent being autism and ADHD, but that's the last ones that I sort of found out, I guess. Right. Prior to that, I'd found out that I had face blindness, so prosopagnosia, so I don't remember people's faces. So sort of I'll be introduced to somebody and then look away and I forgot what they look like, which makes building relationships and things very, very tricky. And I also have no mind's eye, which is called aphantasia, and that just means I can't imagine things. So I don't really dream. I don't have the ability to imagine something in my head. And I don't really have any long-term memory, so I don't remember my childhood at all. I don't remember any of my holidays, anything like that. And so my journey has been not easy. And it's only in the last few years I found out everyone wasn't like that. I just assumed that was our world and we all perceived it that way. But just everyone was able to deal with it a lot better than I was. So it's been a very challenging, I don't want to overstate it, but life. I mean, it's been very tricky for me. The world's not set up to work with someone who can't imagine things or remember faces, right? Relationships and work and things are based on those premises. So going back to exactly your question, I apologize for that little background there, but I think it's kind of necessary to make the story work. I had the absolute honor to be invited to the University of Oxford, which is, I mean, come on, crazy. So someone like me doesn't get to go to the University of Oxford. So it's a staggering thing to get to go to this and meet professors there, and they're professors of autism and professors of neurodivergence, the fellow who runs the neurodiversity campus programs. I mean, it's all these kinds of luminaries. And a lot of their experiences were not of their own neurodivergence, but often their children. And I think that's probably a critical part of it. It's a really big challenge for a parent to try and comprehend what children go through when they're not thinking the same way as the parents and everyone around them. And I think it's a very natural thing for parents to try and see the best in their children, right? And we've all sort of heard people say, oh, my child's most beautiful, the most intelligent, you know what I mean? It's a very natural thing to do. And I think that, so these people who are teachers to the rest of the faculty and the students were very positive about neurodiversity. So, oh, my son can read a book and remember everything in the book forever. They'll always remember everything in the book. And so it's almost photographic memory. And so it was portrayed as being extremely wonderful experience. And there is no doubt there are upsides to neurodiversity, right? There are some things that you get benefits from, for sure.
Yeah.
But at the same time, my experience has been mostly quite negative, right? I haven't really had friends in my life. I'm not close to my family. I'm just not able to hold down relationships very well. It's not something that I've found easy to do. And it's affected work and life, things like that. So yeah, exactly as you say, I then sort of put my hand up timidly as they were sort of portraying neurodivergence in this faculty hall, in this amphitheatre. And I sort of said, well, I don't see it as a superpower. And I think maybe you're all recognizing it as a really positive thing. And there are positive aspects. We mustn't forget the negatives. Some people are going to feel ostracized, they're going to struggle, and that's going to impact your students, some of which will fall into that camp. And perhaps we need to have a balanced approach to make sure that you're seeing both sides, because you can't truly support somebody if you're only portraying the positives. We have to look at the negatives as well. And so I think it was really important to try to make sure we cover that. So yeah, I brought that up, and very difficult to do. As I say, there's all sort of, I've written 5 books on this, and I run this department at Oxford, and yeah.
No, it's a tricky balance to find. I know when you look at the older research literature into neurodivergence, and the researchers are looking at groups of neurodivergent people and then groups of neurotypical people, and of course they report differences because they're publishing something, so they're reporting a difference. They always talk about it as a deficit or a problem, so in some kind of negative way. It's different from the norm, so it must be negative, and that's
right.
Quite recent. It's quite recent that changed. But yeah, you're right. I think there's been a big swing from the negative to the positive, and probably it needs to come back a bit.
That's a really good observation. I hadn't quite thought about it that way, Lisa. Yeah, that's true. I think it used to be you're divergent. There's something wrong with you. You're broken. You don't match how we all think. Therefore, you're mentally disabled, I think would have been probably the term used.
Yeah.
But we've now become, I guess, ableist, and it's not nice to use obviously sort of negative terms. Like people talk about ADHD as not being a good label because it's a sort of negative set of words.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think you're right. Maybe we've swung too far the other way, but we're only talking about the positives now, and not seeing that there are negatives as well. So again, it's about that balance, I think, and perhaps we're still as a society trying to find that balance.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting time to be working on this.
Absolutely.
One of the things also that you told me that one of the professors had said at that session at Oxford was a comment about their student body, and that you said that the professor had said that 25% of their students were neurodivergent, and that the proportion was only growing.
Right.
So incredible numbers that are saying that they're neurodivergent. And I also read recently that 53% of Generation Z identify as neurodivergent. So whether diagnosed or not, I mean, it doesn't really matter. Right. They feel neurodivergent. What's your perspective on these statistics? Very open question for you.
Yeah, no, I think obviously there's going to be naysayers, right? With something like this, it's kind of, and I am the worst person to ever say this because I'm an old white man. But I guess it's sort of trendy in some ways to say you're different, you're part of that neurodivergent group. People sort of are leaning into wanting to be part of minority or something like that. It's what modern society. But most people don't try and join a group that isn't very well accepted voluntarily, right? People tend to rather want to be in the more popular group, right? Yeah. So I wouldn't necessarily say the numbers are inflated, but whatever they do, they reflect a trend, right? And that is that whether it's just people are more comfortable with it, because society is more accepting, whatever it is, people are recognizing themselves that way. They're feeling the need to identify it and say it. So it's obviously important. And speaking as a sort of business psychologist, what's fascinating to me as well is to think about the fact that almost any company out there would want Oxford graduates, right? Because they're one of the best universities in the world. So you'd be like, well, that would be great. That'd be a star person we want. Well, neurodivergence does track sometimes to quite high intelligence. And so maybe this is a big opportunity for companies to recognize that attracting neurodivergency into your workforce isn't just a do it to please the numbers, the DEI or EDI, numbers and to make it look good for marketing effectively, but actually realizing those people could be the brains we need for the next amazing innovation that's going to power us forwards, right? Oxford seeing that and it's saying that, and I guess maybe we need to see that translate into the workforce.
Good points. I mean, that generation now that whether the numbers are inflated or whatever, but that so strongly identify with this cognitive differences and seeing things in a different way, and also don't seem to be scared of it, right? Don't seem to be worried about declaring that's a generation that's leaving university now. It's leaving Oxford and the other universities and coming into the workplace.
It's going to cause some changes.
I mean, what you're saying, it reminds me of a discussion I had with another podcast guest, Richard Etienne, in episode 20, and he was how we met each other over that podcast. So he said that because of the COVID lockdowns, especially, this generation has taken a massive hit in their, in how they were able to socialize, how they were able to learn to build networks, how they were able to learn the skills to work in a business, really, in transition. And so that challenge that they encountered with COVID is probably amplifying the difficulties that they're feeling by identifying as neurodivergent. I mean, I think you're right. Businesses need to just kind of get ready for this talent if they want to succeed. But do you think businesses are prepared for this?
I think the problem with human experiences is that we view our life through our own perception. So whatever perception you have, to you, that's true, right? So to most people my age, they look at it all being about if you work hard, you'll do well and you'll have a good career, right? But we grew up in a time when the economy is growing very, very well and house ownership was very high and things like that. So there's sort of a coloured view to that. And I think the young people now don't have quite the same experience. And so we tend to view their struggles as either not being real or we can't relate to them or whatever it may be. And most people who are going to be running businesses are going to be sort of my age or maybe a little bit older. And so I think, they're struggling to comprehend why it's a concern, why it's an issue. Whereas I think it makes a lot of sense if you were to take someone in their formative years, and thinking of as a psychologist now, I look at it and think of, well, whatever experience you have in your formative years, that really does give you your understanding of reality. So if you're a teenager or something, or younger, during lockdown, you don't get social development. You don't get the ability to grow those strengths, right? And so, they're going to see the world differently. They're going to come to the workplace with a very different understanding of how to interact. And I think unless organizations are aware of that, yes, they're definitely going to struggle. It's really going to be problematic. So are they ready? No, definitely not. I've run into very few leaders who are really viewing this as a focus. Most leaders I speak to commonly, and this is bad, but mostly what they say is, well, those people are lazy, they're not interested in working, and that's their problem. And it's a big generalization. You'll get that in any population, whatever age, but it's a big generalization. I would hesitate to make that about any, age group.
Is it time perhaps for businesses to stop taking the kind of one size fits all view and take a bit more of an individual approach? How can we adapt to it's not pleasing but enable the individuals with their individual skills and their individual limitations to thrive? Is that more the direction you think that?
I think what fascinates to me here is all of the discussion is about young people entering the workforce and what they need to do to change, right?
Yeah.
For me, the model's wrong. That should be flipped, right? The issue is that leaders have traditionally said, you will all follow me, I'm the leader, right?
Yeah.
Business psychology no longer really follows that thinking. That sort of great man theory and things like that from the 1920s, the kind of idea that follow the born leader. Well, we now recognize there is no such thing as a born leader. There's people born into very wealthy households and therefore were born with confidence and a silver spoon, but that's not the same thing. What leaders should be doing is creating a safe space for people to grow and thrive and become the next generation of leaders. That's what leaders do. Leaders shouldn't be creating followers, they should be creating leaders. And I think that comes down to leadership being trained and helped to recognize that the psychological safety that they build in their organization is how they can help these individuals succeed. They're all going to have different needs. And there's nothing wrong with that. Indeed, if we celebrate the individual needs, you will get greater collaboration, greater innovation. The last thing a company should want is for everyone to be the same. If everyone's an autonomous, you will get no innovation. You'll also not be told when there's faults or problems. Look at Boeing. Whistleblowers got shot down, so everyone stopped talking about how bad the quality was, right? Companies need to change and recognize that, and that, I think, is on leaders. I think that's absolutely critical for us to succeed in the future.
Yeah. Do you have an example in mind of that you can share where you have seen somebody employ this kind of approach, right? Where they're much more accepting of diversity, strengths and challenges, and they have seen better innovation or some challenges to leadership that led in a different and better direction, or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of them. I mean, there's the famous one at Microsoft where they were being taught that autism would give them a really good view into problem solving, because some autistic people are extremely detail focused and can just zone everything out and really be into doing that. And so they actually started going out and purposely looking for people to fill roles. And they found that the best people they could find were homeless people, because so many homeless people suffer from mental health issues. And so actually that was a huge turning point for them, which is just a fantastic story, if nothing else. But in my own experience, yeah, absolutely. I worked with a group in Switzerland, and their leadership team was just in disarray, to be honest with you. They were at the point where they didn't really talk to each other, which as a leadership team, pretty terrible. And so they were all
what you want.
No, not at all.
Really?
But they just were such loggerheads and just crossed each other. They just gave up on each other. And so the best way to deal with that was just to ignore each other. And so we worked together, and I helped them sort of go past that, and we did some development programs with them. But it was very much about help them slowing down and seeing each other and recognizing that people are different. And it's as much on them to change as it is on yourself to change, to accept them, to understand them, and to think about ways that you interact so that you work better with them. And when I left that engagement, they had a working agreement for that team. They were working together. They had a new strategy, and so on. So, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what I do, right? And that's what I really, really enjoy. Helping people in those situations is wonderful. It's really heartwarming. I build strong relationships with people when I get to do that. The problem is we don't put as much time into relationship building and learning as we should. I think the sort of normal things I see are and as this happens all of the time, this is not me making this up. Leaders will say, I need my team to do this training. I've done thousands of training courses, so I've delivered lots of training courses, and they'll always say, my team needs to do this, and we'll be like, oh, it's a 3-day training course. So like, fine, no problem at all. But you need to do it as well, leader. Oh, no, I don't need to do it. No, it's just my team that needs to do it. And you try and insist, but you have to. You need to model the behaviors that they can match, right? And the best they'll do is like, maybe I can give you 2 hours, and there's not that recognition of change needed in leadership thinking. It's always the other people need to change. And I think we should be asking leaders to recognize that they need to be the ones who lead change. And that includes in themselves.
Well, we know it's the basic of change management, isn't it? And psychology, that people need their leader to role model the new behavior that they want to see, to show that they're taking it seriously, that they're investing time and energy in it. And otherwise you're going to have a nice course, tick the box, done, and it's going to last, the effects will last for a couple of weeks, and then people will get busy and forget about it.
Exactly so.
That's obviously one of the things that's holding leaders back, right? Maybe that a bit out of dated approach. I'm a leader, do what I say. You all need to change, but I'm fine. Right. Are there other things holding businesses back from making this transition to a more like individual focused approach, to embracing difference rather than trying to put everybody into the same mold, have the same expectations?
Sure. I mean, keeping it topical, certainly the recent overtures on D&I in the US will impact many business owners, both in the US but also around the world. So many companies now are global, that things like that have a massive impact, and it's really sort of taking the wind out of the sails for a lot of organizations in that realm. So there's things like that, so sort of trends out there, or different policies which affect it for sure. I think it's also a lot of unknowns, right? It's a strange area. A business leader is normally thinking about things like sales or productivity, or managing reputation, planning strategy, those kinds of things. It's not often around the sort of the makeup of the organization. That's for human resources, people and culture to do, right? And I think there's a more hands-on approach required, a more intentional thought process around what kind of strategy you want to have. So when I'm delivering strategy with leaders, we'll often sit down and I'll say, okay, what are you thinking about strategy? How are you going to build it? And what they'll always come back to me with is outcomes. The strategy they think are outcomes. So we want to be the leader in our field. We want to produce 500,000 more units, whatever it may be, those kinds of things. Well, those are great, but those are KPIs, right? Those are outcomes. What's your strategy to get there? Right. And so I think our leaders are being taught to not fully understand what strategy is. Strategy is a method. You're going to do something, right? So an example would be, I'm going to hire diverse people intentionally so that we get a really good innovative core of people in our organization, so that we can out innovate our competitors. Result being KPI, we're now the number 1 in our field. Right. But we don't often think that way, and I think that would be a key thing we could do to help leaders understand. I
just want to really call out that you didn't say we want to hire neurodiverse people there. You said we want to hire diverse people. So I mean, we started talking about neurodivergent people, and that got us onto this topic that the important thing is difference, isn't it? I mean, different styles of thinking. Yes, some people have an autistic style of thinking. Some people have an ADHD style of thinking. Some people have a what we would call a typical normal style of thinking. But it's the mix that's so important.
Absolutely, because all that neurodivergent really describes is your 86 billion neurons, right? All the things up here. And you're born with that, and yes, that adapts and so on, and mine's different to yours because, of course, statistically it has to be. There's 86 billion neurons and trillions of synapses. Just mathematically, and I'm terrible at maths, but even I can understand there's going to be a lot of different versions that outcome of that, right? But the reality is that's only the beginning. It's what happens after that that matters, because if you have a different brain to me, your life experience is me different to mine. So you're going to see things and experience things differently. That's also then impacted by your age, your sex, your color, your race, all the things that make us different. And so, it's about diversity, and not just neurodiversity. It's having old and young and different religions, or whatever it may be, because then they'll have met different people, they've had different thoughts, different experiences. And that's how you get innovation. That's how you come up with new thinking. So diversity is a really, really good thing for business.
It's extremely good. I mean, it's also how you can sustain you were talking about being in number 1 position, right? When you got this diversity, and then you have the process, the strategy to become innovative and and achieve your vision of being number one, right? But it's also enables you to keep it, to be resilient.
Absolutely.
Because your teams are just ready to roll with whatever's going to come at you. They're just inherently innovative. It's such an incredible but simple solution.
It is. Yeah, I mean, obviously it's tricky, and I get it. I'm not the best spokesperson for this. As an old white male, right? I'm not the best spokesperson, and I think there's probably lots of old white males who are unsure about this approach, and that's why we need to be talking about it. But that's also why I'm an advocate for it, because I'm looking from my point of view, and I do see the value in it. And that's not because of my more recent neurodivergence realization. I would have said this beforehand. I'm just following the evidence. I'm a psychologist, right? It's not about my feelings. It's the fact that if you have diversity, you get better innovation, you get more ideas, but you also build a better culture. You build a culture that thinks more, that's more aware, that looks around more. Yeah. And I think that's just as valuable, because you're not building a better working culture, both for you and potentially your customers as well. Right. Yeah. And I think that's a good end goal. If you want to build a strategy, that's a pretty good place to start.
It's a pretty good one. Yeah. When you just commented that that you're, I have to say, by the way, I think you're a great person to make these comments. Just stepping out of the middle of my sentence, even though you're an older, not old, white man. I mean, most of the leaders around are still older white men. I mean, and you have realised that this is incredibly important. You've presumably looked at the research and you're persuaded by what you see, and I think you're the ideal person to say it, as well as people of different ethnicities and genders and sexualities and whatnot. Anyway,
you'll just need to be saying it, right? That's the aim.
Yeah. I mean, everybody needs to get it. I mean, you mentioned that it's the evidence that's bringing you to this conclusion, and presumably your approach to leadership is always evolving a little bit. But has this more recent interest in neurodivergence shaped your approach to leadership in any particular way? Changed direction or jump started it, or like that?
For sure. I mean, it's affected everything about me. It's a staggering thing to recognize and get your head around. I'm 46 now, and for 40 something years I just thought I was broken, and that was just my problem, and everyone else just understood the world better and could just deal with it better. And so it's massively impacted everything about me. There's nothing about me that hasn't sort of changed in the last few years as I've been going through this. Specifically about leadership, I think one of the things it's given me is, and I like to think I'm very empathetic anyway. You know, I teach emotional intelligence, I teach leadership skills, you know, but I'm even more tolerant now, I think, because I look at myself, and before I had frustration with some leaders, people I'd met who I thought were colder or meaner or not connecting with others or unwilling to change. And I look at them now and think, well, I don't know what they were struggling with under the surface, just like everyone doesn't know what I've had going on underneath as well. And so I think learning more about myself and about neurodivergency has made me a more forgiving person, frankly. Maybe in the hope I can be more forgiving of myself, I don't know. But yeah, I'm more aware now. I look at experiences, I meet people, I try not to be as quick to judge, because I think I don't know the story that got them there. You know what I mean? I'd like to think I wouldn't just forgive any action, but you know, it does make me think that way a bit more. And I think that's also an important lesson for all leaders to learn as well, that lesson of tolerance, because your journey to become a leader, people have forgiven you for lots of mistakes. We all make mistakes. It's what we do. And so the people who work for you are going to make mistakes, so be tolerant of them and support them through those moments and help them get to where you've gotten to, right? Yeah,
exactly. Okay, we're getting towards the end, so we will have had people listening who we hope by now are thinking, you know, that it really sounds like there's something here, something here where I should maybe learn a bit more about neurodivergence. I should think a bit more about getting a mix of different cognitive styles into my organization, and not trying to make everybody fit so much. Maybe it's something I should invest in as a strategy to execute my vision. Like, what tips would you give to people who may be thinking that to take some next steps?
I think, first of all, treat it like anything else. If you're going to implement a new software system, if you're going to install new fencing around your office, if you're going to bring in private insurance for your employees, in all those situations, you would reach out to a third party and say, who's an expert? We need advice on this, right? You're not a neurodivergency expert right now. That's fine. But reach out to some people who you can work with who can help you with that, who've been through this before, who can give you advice, right? I wouldn't treat it any different to any other solution that you want to put in, right? I would start an opportunity to find someone who you can work with, who can help with that, right? And that's really important. I would say, like anything, don't go with a big bang. Ease into it, try some things and learn. Like, critically build in feedback loops and say, oh, we're going to try this, we're going to start hiring some more diverse people. You're going to get it wrong, right? You're going to hire the wrong people, or you're going to do it in a wrong way where you might insult somebody. It happens, right? Prepare yourself for that and know that's how you learn, right? If you don't take those steps because you're scared of making a mistake, well, then you'll never go anywhere, and then that's the epitome of failing. Businesses have to move forwards to be competitive, right? Just make the changes small, so when the mistakes occur, the mistakes are small, right? If you do a big bang approach and you screw it up, then it's a big mistake, right? So I'd say that's important. Connect with organizations that are involved in these areas. So I, for example, I volunteer with Neurodiversity in Business, and I work with them, and we do sort of advice to help organizations. It's a light touch, but it's, it's what we're there to provide a little bit of support and help in that way. But I would say work with somebody like you or me or other people who do these kinds of things. What else? I guess make sure it comes from the leadership, right? If you're somebody in the organization, I don't know, in often HR, because human resources are the people who are sort of reaching out and looking for cultural things, and so maybe you're somebody from HR watching this. Good on you. That's great. Loving your focus and drive, but you need to get the leadership on board, right? That's the critical thing. If you don't have leadership, sponsorship, and buy-in, it doesn't go where you want it to go, right? And people like us can come in and we can convince them for you. That's that's the kind of services we do, right? But you need that buy-in. It's really, really important. I've seen a lot of programs fail because people have not, unfortunately, had that buy-in. Lots of good will, good effort, but without that buy-in, it becomes deprioritized.
Yeah, and just combining that last point with something that you said earlier about, start small, don't go big bang, and start small, be prepared to fail quick. I'm thinking I'm saying fail quick. I think I'm putting that word in your mouth, but hopefully that's what you meant. But be prepared to fail, because that's how you learn. I mean, that can be a good way to get leaders involved, right? You only need to start with one team, with a leader that's interested and willing to invest a little bit of money with a third party and a bit of time and effort. And that's like the best example that you can share with other leaders in your organization. Show it's relevant, it does work in your organization. Look at these benefits, because obviously you're going to capture the benefits with the pilot as well, and try to persuade them. So I think combining those elements of what you said would also be great.
Absolutely, and it's important to do, right? This is part of how organizations survive in the future, right? This is critical. I can't imagine organizations surviving very far without thinking this way, because you won't get those Oxford graduates we talked about earlier, right? You're not going to get them, and if you're not, that means your competitor probably is, right? And so that's going to be problematic for you. So I don't think it's a question of if organizations are going this path, it's just a question of when. And usually the first ones to get there are the ones who start winning that race. Good point. We're at the end of our
discussion, Robert. If people would like to learn more about you, about what you're offering and so on, could you share with them why they can take a look and find out?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously reach out to my website, which is gwspartners.co.uk. So it's hard to remember. It's Great White Shark Partners.co.uk. GWS. Part of my autism is you fascinate on certain things. So I know every fact there is to know about sharks. It's just something that I was always fascinated by. So it's just one of those things. So reach out to me there, or on LinkedIn. Hopefully we can put that in the post of this. If I can help, I'd love to. Please reach out. I love getting to do what I get to do. It's genuinely my passion. We can help people together, and what more we want to do than that. So yeah, if I can help, please do reach out. And Lisa, thank you. This has been a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it.
Me too, Robert. Thanks so much for your time and for sharing some of your experience and expertise with listeners. All right, thanks very much, and thanks for listening.